I hope you guys' Christmas all went well. Ours was had a lot of variety of things. Do you guys know by any chance what the number 361 represents? Marcus, come on. You're going to school. How many days left till Christmas? I have a lady that hates Christmas. She used to hate Christmas. She works at Walmart. She used to hate Christmas. And her name is Michelle, and I used to walk up behind her and go, "It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas." She's actually slapped me twice. But this year, she did. In fact, I told the manager, Ron, I said, "Ron, she just slapped me." He goes, "You better be glad she didn't kill you." But over the last 3 years, she has changed her heart, and she now is wearing joy to the world and she's telling me Merry Christmas. And so this year I walked up to her and I go, "Come here, Michelle, feel my muscle." I go, "I have power over you. You like Christmas now, don't you?" Anyway, she gave me a big hug and stuff. So this has been a fun Christmas for us, been unique. Well, as you can see in the title, it's Finding Hope in the Most Peculiar Places. And God has laid this upon my heart. I'd kind of like us as a church to kind of look forward to 2026 because we don't know what our future holds. It looks like our country's getting torn apart at every level. I think we're very blessed. We got a lot of strong people in government. A lot of people have different views, but I will tell you what, things are in turmoil, and there's a lot of people out there that are hurting, and there's things that are happening in our world, and there's things that are happening even among us of things that we didn't expect. And so I'd kind of like to just view the last days of 2025 and get a tool. Think of it like a suitcase and if you don't have one, then think in terms of finding a way to talk about it and talk about what you're going to do when you're in troubled times. You know, me and Colleen, I'm going to get real transparent with you. Me and Colleen have already begun conversations. We really like our marriage. I mean, 7 years now, 7.5 years. And I'm telling you what, we had conversations earlier saying, "Oh man, if you ever pass away, I'll never marry again." And we started down that road. And I'll tell you what, it says a wise man, you'll see later on, a wise man sees evil and prepares for it, or he finds refuge. And one thing that I didn't realize is I like what's going on in my life right now, but you cannot hold on to that. And so we now are having conversations of how God's going to have his way in our life, regardless of whether we're together or whether we're not. We had to actually undo what we said. We both said we'll never marry again. And I think I've told you guys this. I pulled in a parking lot. We were driving, and I said, "We're going to do this. We're going to tell God he's God and not us. We're not going to tell God what we're going to do." And so in this particular thing, we're going to look at two men who actually found hope in the most peculiar places. And we need to have our hearts ready to at least have some idea of how we can walk in this when it comes our turn and how we can help each other. So let's get started here. Proverbs 13, verse 12. Actually, let's start here. Father in heaven, I pray that you would come down right now. Fill us with your Holy Spirit. Give us hearts to hear. Give us our minds to be able to think through our own particular circumstance so that we can actually decide what we're going to start doing now to prepare for things that are going to get out of hand. Or it happens in all of our lives. I pray that we could see from your scriptures things that you would like us to have in place, just like fire extinguishers are in houses when the fire hits. I pray that we would have these passages, these places that we can go look so we can find hope in our own particular, peculiar circumstances. Proverbs 13:12 says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Hope, the word deferred means it just lasts longer. It just keeps going. It's like a deferred payment. You don't make it right away. It means that you're really, man, I need, there's a time where we need to find hope because it'll work for us. And we need it to fill in a blank, and so, as we'll look into here. 1 Peter 1 verse 3 says, blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. So hope is a really important thing. Okay, I haven't been up here in a while. So finding hope during trials is a most critical need for a believer's walk. Without real hope, a person is left to the drudgery of gut-wrenching effort or a life of misery and despair. Do you know how to find God's hope when your life gets out of control during trials? And so we're going to look at this. During times of difficult trials of both physical or emotional trauma, there can be two different outcomes to the one who's under those trials. You can see these outcomes by how they have learned to handle their unexpected trials. There are those who have learned to find hope in their circumstances, and then there are those who are just trying to get through their pain. And this is a sick test that they did, but they did do it. I found out about it. This company, I don't even know who it was, took a mouse and they dropped it in a bucket of water. Controlled test. It's warm water, and they wanted to know how long that mouse would try to swim. And it lasted for 32 hours before it died. Okay? Then they took another mouse and they held it in their hands and just held onto it until it stopped squirming. And they dropped it in the bucket, and it lasted 2 minutes. When you feel like your life is controlled by other circumstances and you give up, when it's your turn to actually learn what to do, it can make the huge difference. If you don't find a source that helps you tell you that something else can happen. I have found my own. So here it is. This is not moving forward. What am I doing wrong? Do up or down or left or right? Okay, so there's that one. All right. So the question I have for you today is, do you know how to find God's hope when your life gets out of control? So let's start here. Where does trouble come from? Well, one of them is if you're breathing and you're in this world, you will have trouble. You see this in John 16:33. It says, I have said these things to you that you may have, in me you may have peace. But he says very clearly, in this world you will have tribulation. But take heart, for I have overcome the world. The word tribulation in the Greek definition is oppressing together, a pressure. Oppression that comes from the outside. Some stuff comes from the inside, but some comes from the outside. Affliction, it could be how we're feeling or something that has happened to us. Distress, or you're in straits. Okay, I want to read this. This is the book I've been reading. It's called Where is God When It Hurts? From Philip Yancey. He's got another one called Disappointment with God. And I've left these books on your insert names if you guys ever want to get them. They're they were invaluable for me to help me learn how to walk through some things. So there's this guy, his name is Paul Tournier, and in his book called Creative Suffering, the Swiss physician, which is Paul, he was a physician and a counselor, recalls his surprise upon reading an article entitled "Orphans Lead the World." The article, which appeared in respected medical journal, surveyed the lives of 300 leaders through history that had great impact on world history. And it covers, this is just a few of them, Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, Robespierre, George Washington, Napoleon, Queen Victoria, Golda Meir, Hitler, Lenin, Stalin, and Castro. So in this list and all the other ones, you have good leaders and you have bad leaders. I mean, Hitler influenced this world in a great amount way, but it was bad. But you look at George Washington, and he led this country in a great way, but it was good. Do you know what these guys all have? 300 of them. You know what they found out they all had in common? They were all orphans. So this guy, after hearing this, he himself was an orphan. I'm going to just go forward. He came to this conclusion. He says, each major event of life, success or tragedy, has either good or evil, but now he began to perceive that circumstances, whether fortunate or unfortunate, are morally neutral. You got to get this down as I move forward. This is a piece of puzzle. Morally neutral, meaning it doesn't make you a bad person. How many of you know who Nicky Cruz is? Okay, he's a great evangelist. His parents were Satan worshipers. You're going, well, wait a minute, how did that come from this? And he came to this conclusion. He says, only rarely are we masters of events. He says, but along with those who help us, we are responsible for our reactions. Hi, how you doing? You want to borrow $50?
I got $50.
There we go. They keep trying to have me wear those things that come around here, but I feel like there's a bug on me, and I don't like it. Plus, I have hearing aids, and it doesn't help. Okay. So we are responsible for our reactions. In the medical practice, Tournier saw wounded people every day, and he was quick to admit that suffering may push a person towards brokenness and not towards personal growth. That, in fact, was why he moved away from the traditional pattern of diagnosis and treatment and began to address his patients' emotional and spiritual needs as well. He felt an obligation to help them channel suffering as a transforming agent. Here's the last part. The act of breaking, when we go through brokenness, will cause pain, of course, but it need not destroy. To the contrary, in the right environment, the disarray can lead to a creative growth. I got to tell you, when I was going through my pastoral studies, there was the same guy, we were friends, and he went through it. My life took a different course when my ex-wife just didn't like me anymore, and I just went down a different road of very dark, I call them the dark days. He got ordained. And to this day, I don't know what's happened to him because he went through hard times and disillusionment set in like what happens with many of us. And he chose to take a different route, which was to disconnect and get out of the ministry. Now, whether he's in the ministry or not, I don't know. I haven't talked to him in a long time. But I'm going to tell you, I watched his reaction. And I, too, was going through things. And there were days during these, what I call the dark days of learning how to overcome evil by doing what is good. And there were days where I told God, I just said, listen, I don't know if this is ministry. I don't know that I want it. And I was in despair. And I didn't know how to walk in it. So, Jesus teaches us that the world will give us trouble, but how we react to it is what we're going to learn to do. So what can we learn from the scriptures so we can be a people who walks properly in hope during times of despair? Okay? The first one is, I'm going to put some pieces of puzzles together as we go through this. Let me get this over here. The first thing we need to learn to do, and I told you, me and Colleen decided to do something. We have conversations now. We don't have them anymore, but there for a while we were going, what do you think is going to happen? And we took the turn and said, well, we're going to find out we're going to give God his place in our life, and we're going to reclaim an area that we gave up. The first thing you have to do is you have to anticipate them. It says in 1 Peter 4:12, beloved, do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you as though something strange were happening. 1 John 3 verse 13 says, do not be surprised, brothers, that the world hates you. From my own personal experience, during my dark days, I made things worse for a while, and I couldn't learn, and I kept going down because I kept saying, this just cannot be happening. This just cannot be happening. And I kind of set out this, everything will be okay. If I just kind of do this. And I mean, when people decide that they're going to follow Jesus, they get into trouble at times because they go, oh, wow, now that I'm a follower of Jesus, he's just going to take care of everything. And they think that they're not going to have to go through trials or people that reject them or problems that are happening. And I decided one day to go, something's happening and I just don't like it. Which then began the road of how do I walk in this? So there are three things. There are three things there's more than that, but there are three things that the scriptures are very clear about where trouble comes from. Okay? Yeah, this is not, it already went on. Sorry. There it is, that is it. Number one, just being alive here on the earth. Get that from John 16, verse 33. And the second one is, if you want to live a godly life, what does it say will happen to us? We'll get persecuted. The trouble comes from that. The third one is getting married. If you don't want to have trouble, stay single. Actually, that's not true, but God said it's not good for man to be alone. And they have done studies that married people live longer because of certain things. But when we do marriage counseling, one of the things that I try to help people know is when two people come together with two different decisions, what happens is that it's called, there's friction. All of a sudden you have to decide who's right about how to load the dishwasher, which I had to give up my right to go, look, I'm right, okay? I also had to give up my right because I think I know how to travel better than Colleen. But, Colleen has a different agenda. She likes to get there. I like the hey, let's go over here. Let's see this. I had to win her over on that one. So but we had to actually have conversations and stuff. And so we have trouble between us. The Proverbs, right there, you can see it. Proverbs 27:12, that I said earlier, says, a prudent sees danger, or let's put in there, sees trouble, and they take refuge, which means they prepare for it. But the simple keep going mindlessly and don't engage and don't discover and don't learn, and they suffer for it. You're going to see this unfold. So the first one is you got to learn how to anticipate them. The second one is revealed promises. Okay? It's finding revealed promises. I can tell you to this day, my promise that God gave me, I did not get it out of a a promise book that just doesn't work. With God, there's relationship. It's not a formula. You can't go get a promise book and go, well, that one fits here. I'm just going to claim this promise. It doesn't work that way. Now, God is sovereign. He can. But I will tell you what, in my desire to find out what's going on during these dark days, I go, I don't know what to do. He let me know two things in 1 Peter. He said, Marshall, I want you to overcome evil by doing what is good. And I said, okay. And then he said in 1 Peter 5:10, my promise from God is I remember hearing it, and it was personal when he said, after you have suffered a little while, he himself will come and make you perfect, which means repaired, not better. It means I'll repair you. Strong, firm, steadfast. I held on to this promise as I kept doing things that are good while evil was. And it was terrible. There were lies told about me, and I couldn't undo them. And the feelings were just terrible. Discovering his revealed promises makes the difference on how we suffer and our outcome. You can see there in 2 Peter 1, 3 and 4, it says, his divine power has granted us to all things that pertain to life and godliness through the knowledge of him who called us to his own glory and excellence, by which he has granted to us his precious and very great promises. But listen to this, so that through them, those promises, you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped from the corruption that's in the world because of sinful desires. I can tell you, when you're treated unfairly, you will have sinful desires that will want retaliation or cutoff or response that's in a way that's bad. And it's only if you have something else in place that you can stay away from these retaliation thoughts that are going on. You have to have something in place. I liken it like this. So a person, how this works is, so a person's got a house payment and it's due 3 weeks from now, and they're calling all the time. And you're like, they're calling, they're, listen, we need you to make a decision on this. And then you have an aunt or an uncle who passes away, but before they pass away, they come to you and they say, listen, I've always favored you as my favorite, so this is the deal. I believe in you, and just follow me, okay? And he says, I have $2 million I'm going to give you. And you know it's true. And you go, okay, so when I pass, you're going to have $2 million put into your account. Do you think those phone calls are going to affect you for somebody wanting a house payment? For $2 million coming? If you know it's true, this is what God's promises can do to us. All of a sudden, the things that you don't know what to do about become something where you come to, what I'll show you in Abraham, he comes to a conclusion that God never told him, but he just gave God the benefit of the doubt because he believed in a promise. Revealed promises are key. So let's look at this. Hebrews 11:17-19 says this. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. And he who has received the promises was in the act of offering up his son, because he clearly heard God say, this wasn't a mystery, he clearly heard God say, I want you to sacrifice your son. So he took the time to have his son go gather things up. And I used to picture him going, I can't believe God's doing this. And I pictured this all earlier before I understood this passage. And I go, that's not what happened. Abraham saw something. It was an act of, he received the promises, was in the act of offering up his son, to whom it was said, through Isaac shall your offspring be named. He considered that God was able to even raise him from the dead, from which, figuratively speaking, he did receive him from the dead. Let me see if this will do this in time. It may just give you all three. Nope, it'll just give you all, or two of them. Number one, you have to see something. Look at this. He received God's promises of Isaac being the one who the offspring would come through. He clearly heard that. He didn't make it up. He's going, well, I know this guy's important, but I don't know what to do. But the one that's the most important is Abraham saw his son alive while he was raising his hand up to sacrifice his son out of obedience. He saw his son alive. He considered that God was able even to raise him from the dead. God never told him that. It's what he brought to the table. It enabled him to do something that no father should ever think that they should know how to do this. But when he heard that it was doing, he was able to walk in this because he said, God can raise him from the dead. So let's look at a different one. Let's look at a case of a forgotten promise. So Jesus was in the boat with his disciples, and they were crossing a lake. You get this in Mark, and I'm going to go ahead and pop it up there. This is on that day when the evening had come, he said to them, let us go across to the other side. And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as it was. And other boats were with him. And then a great storm came along. And in the middle of the storm, they wake up Jesus, and they tell him this. You can see it right there. Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing? Have you guys ever said that? You ever said that to God, going, where are you? Which is saying, do you care? And he awoke and rebuked the winds and said to the sea, peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And then he said to them, why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith? Now that was supposed to wait, that thing was supposed to wait at the bottom, but it's there now. What were they missing? If you would go up to, there was a promise that Jesus said when they got into the boat. He said, let us go across to the other side. And so Jesus, took this as the teaching time and said, where is your faith? What did I say to you? And they could have gone to, we don't like this, but he said we're going to make it. That's what they could have offered, but they didn't. And it's stuff that we have to come up with in our own heart. You don't have to fill in the blank by going, well, I'm just going to think positive thoughts about this. No, you need to ask God, what is it that you have said that I have forgotten? And this is how we begin to walk in this. So we're going to look at two men right now. Two men who found in the most peculiar places of how they changed their circumstances by their responses to God and their circumstances. Number one, we're going to look at David. And again, it's going to pop the whole thing up. It didn't work. I was supposed to go in line, so sorry, this is too much information. So let's do this. I'm going to read the story because it's too much to put on the screen. So I'm going to read it to you. So this is in 1 Samuel 30. Verses 1 through 9. Now, when David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day, the Amalekites had made a raid against Ziklag, and they overcame Ziklag and they burned it. This is where all their families were at. And they burned it, and they took captives all the women and the children, and they carried them off and went away. And when David and his men came back from their raid, they found that the camp was empty. And it says that these guys wept until there was no more strength in them. David's two wives were taken. And then things turned. I want you to picture this. He's in this situation. Their camp is all burned. All their family's gone. And now David, the leader, is standing there. And all of his men, I don't know how many there were, all of his men turned to him. And they were holding rocks. And David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because all the people were bitter in soul for each sons and daughters. You ever been blamed? You ever been in a situation where you happen to be there and they blame you because of something, and it's not your fault, but they just don't know what to do about it? All his men were ready to stone him. Now, I'm telling you what, I don't know about you. I've played dodgeball before. David could have taken, the stance of going, all right, you guys want to take me on? Where is this loyalty? He could have done all of that. Or he could have went hiding or something. But David did something in this passage that we will look in here. And it says, but David strengthened himself in the Lord God. He strengthened himself right in the middle of that situation. He strengthened himself in the Lord, his God. Then David did something else. He said, Abiathar, the priest, the son of Ahimelech, bring me the ephod, which was the thing that they were supposed to, it was a symbol, it was something where they would seek the Lord. So Abiathar brought the ephod, and did David inquired of the Lord, and he told God something. If you see up there, David set his heart to seek God by bringing the ephod. And the third one, number 3 there, David in the middle of despair inquired of the Lord and asked a very specific question. And guess what? Because he chose to go this route and make himself available to the Lord, he found out that God was answering, yeah, pursue these guys. And they got not only their families back, but they got all of the stuff that these guys that had come into their camp. And I want you to look at number 4, though. This is what we can do on behalf of other people. If we can get where we do not give in to despair and get before the Lord and seek Him, He gave His men a different direction to pursue, and they benefited from His willingness to walk in this way. So let's look at a different one. This one was a good one. Let's look at Jonah. He's running from God's call. Here's a brief description. Hopefully, I would like to do this one at a time, but it's probably going to just throw it all up there. So there we are. We're just going to go through them. So here's a rundown. He clearly hears God tell him to go to Nineveh, call the people to repent. He gets on a ship going in the opposite direction. Now, this is where affliction comes from the inside. It wasn't done to him. He got into trouble because he chose a wrong response. God uses a great wind to wreck this ship for many, many days. They cast lots to see who has sinned after they emptied the ship of all the cargo. And it came to Jonah, and humbly, I think this is pretty cool, he said, hey, it's me, guys. Throw me overboard, which is a pretty humble response, and everything will be fine. So they throw him overboard, and he gets swallowed by a great fish. So this is what I want us to see right now. He's in the middle of a fish, okay? So picture this. Some of you have heard me describe this. This is not an empty cave where he has a candle that you see in books and he's sitting against the wall, waiting for this to get over with. 3 days, he's in a great big gunny sack that's filled full of slimy gut juice and all sorts of fish and disgusting stuff that this great fish eats. And so I am sure his eyes were burning. I am sure he's pushing against the wall so he can have something. God kept him alive. But he is in a circumstance that just is not favorable, that I think would be absolutely overwhelming to me. But in the middle of this circumstance, this comes out of him. Verse 2, from the belly of a fish, and you can go to verse 2, it says, I called to the Lord out of my distress, and he answered me. How did he come to that conclusion? And out of the belly of Sheol, I cried out, and you heard my voice. You guys, this is what we have to do to get prepared. You have to know that God wants to hear you. And you can either be like Peter when he's out, he's walking, he's fine on the water when Jesus says come. He's doing okay. But it says he looks at the winds and the waves and he begins to sink. The good news is Jesus picked him up. But then Jesus asked him the same question. He goes, where was your faith? You were doing fine. It's something we have to offer God. He says, verse 4, he says, then I said, I'm driven away from your sight, meaning I'm guilty. And he says, yet I shall again look upon your holy temple. These are promises that he believed. He didn't make them up so he'd feel better. They're promises he actually believed. You have to discover a promise when you're in the middle of these things. And then look at verse 9. And I, with the voice of thanksgiving, in the middle of a fish, he's thinking about being Thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you what I have vowed, and I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord. He did not. He was not the rat that just said, I'm just going to give up. This is what he gave to the Lord. He had these things inside. It's what we need to have inside. And the Lord spoke to the fish and vomited up Jonah on dry land. So we're coming to a close here. So in times of trials and troubles, that it's when we need to learn to seek him. Look at Jeremiah 29. Again, it's doing all these. These are supposed to go one at a time, but just look at the first one, please. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. And I love this. He says, I will be found by you, declares the Lord. When you're at your most wit's end, you need to go to this passage and you go, listen, I can't hear you. It's okay to say I don't know what to do, but I know that you are listening to me right now. He says, there's another promise. He says he draws near to the brokenhearted. He draws near also. He's close to those who are crushed in spirit. Matthew 12 says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good person out of the good treasure brings forth good. Another version said, a person who, out of the good things that he stored in his heart. And I'm storing mine now over circumstances that I may be facing in the future. I know, like I said, I go to nursing homes. Used to. I don't go as much anymore, but I used to go, wow, this is how it ends. And I'm going, I wonder what I will do. These are times when all of a sudden nobody comes to visit, and all of a sudden you're left alone, and you don't know what to do. Where will you find your value? Well, I've already begun to get those answers. My value comes from the Lord. He told me in Colossians, Jesus says, I'm going to share my value with you. He goes, look, all the deity is found in Jesus. And it says, and in him you've been made full. And I went, whether I'm winning or losing in any circumstances, I've been made full. So then I get to this question here. Are you okay if God shows you where you're lacking in your faith so that you can know where you need to grow? Don't be surprised when all of a sudden what you thought you had in place is not enough for you to get through circumstances. We all have that. Peter had to go through it 3 years. He could smell Jesus' voice. He rose people from the dead. He went out and did ministry with Jesus. And at the end of 3 years, his best friend, Jesus, tells him, you're going to fall away. And Peter does something that he shouldn't have done. He arrogantly said, not me. They're all going to fall away, but not me. And Jesus had to bring him to a place where he goes, do you love me more than these? He had to say it 3 times. It was very painful. And I got to tell you what, I quit being surprised that I get to the end of my faith and I go, okay, let's just go there. Remember this guy? He stands by a guy over here. I can't remember who he is, but all he can do is beat his chest. And he says, have mercy on me, a sinner. I tell you what, I have learned to just take that position before the Lord when I come to a place where I said, I didn't know that I was going to react this way, and I'm really mad. And I'm mad at you, and I don't know what to do. And instead of going on with all my words, I just go, listen, have mercy upon me, a sinner. Help me understand what to do. And God answers me. He shows me little things. He puts a verse in my head or says, who are you? And, you know, in my house one time and something was happening, and he goes, well, wait a minute, who's this house belong to? And I know the answers from Crown Ministries, a financial study. I go, you're the owner. Then what does that make you? And I says, I'm the manager. And I just don't know what to do. I was at peace now going, I just don't know what to do. So then I could get on my knees and I say, God, what do you want me to do with the house that you've given me to manage? And he answered me because I strengthened myself in the Lord and I sought the ephod, so to speak. Here's a question. Are you okay if God shows you where you're lacking in your faith so you can know where you need to grow? So I'm going to finish with this. And the worship team can come up here now, because that's what it says right here on my notes. No, wait a minute. That comes later. No, you guys go ahead. So these probably are all going to come up here, so I'm just going to give them to you. All right. It's not moving. Can you move it? There you go. Number 1, ask God to examine your heart. Ask him to make you ready for the day of trouble. Make it okay if you're going, look, kids learn from Ryan and Callie's Lula. She's learning right now, okay? But when she gets to be a teenager, it's totally different learning. Make it okay. Just examine yourself regularly every day. Being mature is not an event. It's a daily walk. It's every day you make a decision. Make it easy for God to just make it simple for you so where you're not surprised. Number 2, read books about people who have walked through trials and have come out being builders in this world. Do you know when Joseph came to the conclusion what you meant for evil, God meant for good? That did not happen that day. He went through, he became the best. When he got thrown into slavery, he became the best slave person. And he was over other slaves, and he made this environment good. And then when he got thrown in prison, he became the best prisoner. And I've got a guy in Norton prison that's about to get out, and he's a great guy. He's been in there almost 10 years now, and he is building like crazy inside this prison. And so there are books. One of them is this one, and you'll see it on your end. Where is God when it hurts? It helped me walk through times when I was in despair. Disappointment with God is another one. Shattered Dreams is a great one, where we face things that we're going, man, my dreams are shattered. Number 3, when in a trial, time is needed to seek God. Even if you're mad or struggling with how this could happen, he's willing to wrestle with you. He's not offended. He's willing to wrestle with the guy all night long, okay? That's our God. He's willing to wrestle with you. He's not offended because you're no longer liking him momentarily, but you just don't know what to do with it. It's okay to express yourself. Don't freak out. You need to give it to him. He's not offended. And then you need to be careful what comes out of your mouth. I will tell you, when David in Psalms 42, you'll see down at the bottom there, there we go. Let's do this. Psalms 42, you'll see that at the bottom. David spoke to his soul. Again, I'm going to tell you, you need to balance, okay? He did this deal. He goes, why are you in despair, O my soul? Why are you disturbed within me? And then later on, he actually goes, I am disturbed in my soul. But then he tells his soul, put your hope in God, for I will yet praise him. And I used to only do this one, waiting for the whole despair to end. But now, in the middle of despair or things that I'm not sure about doing, I learn to include, God, you're always faithful. I make it my own. You're always faithful. You're this, that. I remember this. David did these things. I remember this. I remember this. But then he would come back over here and he goes, in some cases, he goes, why have you left me like this as no friends or something like that? He would say words like that. But then he would say, but you are faithful in every way and your loving kindness is everlasting. It's this whole balance thing. Don't end with this one down here. End with praise and discovering hope. And number 5, discover your promise. Don't discover a promise that fits your need. This takes time for God to reveal something to you. Like with Abraham, Abraham was able to offer something up because he came from himself and he offered it up to God. He says he can raise him from the dead. God gave me mine. You just have to ask him to reveal it to you. Paul got it about the thorn in the flesh. Remember, in the thorn in the flesh was something he couldn't live with. And he says, I don't want to live with this. And God says, well, let me explain it to you. Your weakness is going to be my strength. Paul goes, okay, then let's get started. Let's go. And it ended the issue with him. It didn't mean that he liked it. But I will tell you, Joni Erickson, all these guys who have gone through trauma in their life and God didn't heal them from their diseases and stuff, they have to actually learn how to walk in the things that God has given them. Jonah got it. Abraham got it. David got it. He cried out to the Lord. I got mine.